But Lepore, another conversation I want to have is specifically with the Atlantic Division. And we've touched on this, a little bit with the Leafs and how we think they're going to perform this season. But as it stands right now, do you think the Leafs are for sure going to finish as a top 3 seed in the Atlantic Division? And I'll even ask you, where do you think, right now, at this moment, as the roster is currently constructed, where do you think this team is going to finish in the Atlantic Division?
I think, to be honest, everyone's going to write in Tampa in first place, but I think the next 3 teams everyone would circle are Toronto, Boston, and Florida. But I think if any fan really pushed that team as a guarantee to finish in the top 3, I think that wouldn't be very smart, simply because, there's 3 of them with only 2 spots and all 3 are really good teams. Would I bet on the Leafs finishing in the top 3? Yeah. I think I would. The division, there's a lot of X factors in this division this year. You mentioned, the changes to Boston, Krejci's a big change, man. I'm not necessarily going to say a loss, because as you touched on as well, they're filling in Taylor Hall, but it's a culture difference. There's also things like Bergeron and Marchand are getting older. Marchand weird, his pace of how he's improved at his age is actually pretty historic.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, yeah, not too many guys in NHL history have improved or had their best ever seasons or among their best seasons into their 30s like he has. So props to him. But there's that weird thing, kind of you're kind of done with Boston. I still think Boston's a really good team, and I don't want to play them in the playoffs, and there's that whole factor. But I think the whole thing of them being a legit Stanley Cup contender has kind of faded, and maybe in a few months will look ridiculous when they're just being the Bruins again. As for Florida, I expect a lot out of Florida this year, man. I think Florida is one of those teams in the NHL that people have a hard time taking them seriously, because we have old narratives about the Florida Panthers stuck in our minds about how they're a joke of an organization and no one goes to their games. They never spend money, but they got a good coach, they got good players. Hopefully if the goaltending can keep going, man, that's another team that can do really well. But to write in to at this point, to fully write in Boston, Toronto, or Florida into the top 3 is kind of tough, because I think they're all kind of in that same boat. The way there's a lot of unknowns. But as far as the Leafs specifically go, I'll say it, if I had to make my standings right now, I would put the Leafs second, and everyone throws shit at me after that comment. But like I said earlier, kind of the Edmonton factor, where they have McDavid over 82 games, while the Toronto Maple Leafs have the Maurice Rocket Richard winner in Matthews and our first team All-Star in Mitch Marner. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points from 2 guys that they're pretty much a lock to get, barring injury. And then you throw in the pretty well locked points as well from Tavares and Nylander, and they're going to score goals. They're going to score goals. So you can bet on that. So at this point, here more shit just getting thrown at me. I'll put the Leafs at number 2 in that division.
No, Lepore, I'm right there with you, man, because as much shit as people like to throw on the Leafs for being god awful in the playoffs and choking every season, they're a great regular season team.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just say it. This team is an elite regular season team.
Elite.
Which is sad. It's sad to say, considering what this team has done in the Matthews era, specifically falling short in the playoffs. But they're a very good regular season team. And I do also think that as currently constructed, I'm going to say, honestly, I think this team is a lock to finish in the top 3. I really do.
A lock.
I do. And I think Boston is going to take a step back. I think the loss of Krejci is really big. Now their number 2 center is going to be Charlie Coyle. So you're going from a Bergeron Krejci 1-2 punch at center to Bergeron and Charlie Coyle. So I think that's going to be an issue for Boston. And I know that they re-signed Taylor Hall, and he was great when he came over at the trade deadline. And Pasternak, hopefully for them is going to have is going to be healthy the entire season. I know last year he missed, I believe it was the first, 25 games or something like that. Because he was dealing with an off-season injury. So yeah, you get a full season of Pasternak, who, as we all know, is one of the best goal scorers in the league. But I don't know. It's like I said, I don't really view this team as a legit Stanley Cup contender. And I look at their blue line as well. Like Charlie McAvoy is great, but then after that, Matt Grzelcyk, Derek Forbort, Brandon Carlo, Mike Riley, Connor Clifton. Like when I just go through the names on that blue line, to me,
Question marks.
Yeah, a lot of question marks. I think they're lacking a little bit of talent up front, despite having the star power that they do. So again, like the Bruins, I think they're still a really solid team. Like I still think they're probably going to make the playoffs, but honestly, I think over the course of 82 games, just looking at the rosters, I think the Leafs are probably going to have a better regular season than Boston. And, I guess we can pencil in Tampa in the one spot, almost out of respect at this point. This team is back-to-back Cup champions. But, even looking at that team, Lepore, they lost Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman, and that was a massive part of their bottom six. They also lost Tyler Johnson.
Another one.
Like this team has lost some players. They lost Yanni Gourde in the expansion draft of the Seattle Kraken. This team has lost some talent. Like, don't think that they're just going to come back guns a-blazing and are going to blow away the Atlantic Division. So, but again, saying all that, we'll pencil them into the one spot because of everything they've accomplished the last couple seasons. And then after that, it's like you said, I think Florida is that one X factor team because I look at that team on paper and up front, that is a scary team, man.
It's a good team.
That's a very scary team. And you can argue that Florida, like even looking at their defense core, like it's not that great. Like even just looking at some of the names they had, like Aaron Ekblad, Mackenzie Weegar, Brandon Montour, Gustav Forsling, Radko Gudas, like that defense core isn't really, scaring me, but they do have a great forward core. And then you look at their goaltending with Spencer Knight, who at some point I think is just going to take over this job from Sergei Bobrovsky, who Florida probably wants to. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about lighting money on fire. They want to light that contract on fire. Like that is just a nightmare, but yeah.
Horrible. Imagine Florida, how scary they'd be as an organization if they didn't have that right now.
Oh my God,
man.
Can you imagine them with like, even like adding like, I don't even want to say like adding like a $10 million forward, but if they added like a $6 and a $4 million forward up front.
Yeah. Or like a bit if they could have went out and got Hamilton.
Yeah. Or a defenseman. Exactly.
Yeah. If they could have done that, like what?
Just
like,
give that $9 million that the Devils gave to Hamilton. You replace that with a Bobrovsky contract. Yeah. That team looks insane right now.
So, yeah. Like you're pretty optimistic about Florida then. So, I mean, so you'd have it Tampa, Toronto, Florida.
Yeah. Like I think yes. You know what? I'm going to go and say it. I think that Florida right now, I have them a little bit ahead of Boston, and maybe that's kind of crazy, but man, Barkov right now he's legit one of the best players in the NHL.
Yeah.
Just as
it's kind of like what I said before with that whole Florida thing, where it's like, you don't give them enough attention. Like Barkov doesn't get enough attention because he plays for the Florida Panthers.
Exactly. And Jonathan Huberdeau, who, I mean, both of those guys used to be underrated, but now that everyone's calling them underrated, it's almost like they've become overrated in a way. But Sam Bennett, who emerged as an unreal number 2 center for them last season at the deadline. And then they traded for Sam Reinhart. Like this team up front, they're going to score a ton of goals. They're going to be one of the best offenses in the league. And I think, man, like right now, I think I'd have them a little bit ahead of Boston, but I think all 4 are probably going to make the playoffs, Lepore.
Yeah.
One of those teams is probably going to get a wild card spot. So that's the way.
And even with this order, even with like putting them in order again, like you don't know what's going to happen with injuries or additions and this and that. So, I mean, just based on how it goes right now, I think I would put them in the same order as you, but I'd also put them all in the playoffs. So like, I can't see Boston missing the playoffs. But like, I can't picture that one.
And like, we can all agree, like Montreal, like they're not making the playoffs, right?
There you go. Bam. Bruno just finishes the podcast with that. This season's going to be fun for Montreal, man. Like we can go on a rant about this one, but I'd like to ask, like, again, conversations, comment down below, everyone. Like Montreal Canadiens fans, what are the expectations this year? Like, I wouldn't know what answer to give that. It's kind of tough to like be negative after a team makes the Stanley Cup final. But at the same time, you look at those teams in your division and you look at your past 5 regular seasons, and it's kind of tough to be optimistic at the same time. So again, another fun one. It's going to be fun to talk about Montreal.
Yeah, that's a team that's going to be very interesting to track. Obviously, with the Shea Weber injury, they brought in
Right.
Mike Hoffman, which was a nice signing.
That'll
And
be fun. Yeah.
and then Carey Price, who's also dealing with injuries, but it looks like he's going to be fine for the start of the season. But yeah, that's a team
Mhm.
like heading in. I don't know, man. Like I'd have them outside of the playoff picture. I think at best they're fighting for a wild card spot, but it's gonna be very interesting to see how this Atlantic division shakes out this season because I think there's gonna be a couple of surprises, and I think we might not even see Tampa win the division this year. So that's gonna
Oh, there
be
you
it's gonna
go.
be very fun to track Lepore. But